Hello and welcome to Muppetsational, the Muppet Show podcast, hosted by three huge Muppet fans. Join us each week as we dive into an episode of Jim Henson's classic variety show, now finally available on Disney+. This week, it's Season 1, Episode 4, starring the zany Ruth Buzzi. It's time to get things started on the chronological, explorational, conversational Muppetsational!
Woohoo! Woo!
Yay! Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Muppetsational. I'm Lewis Chandler.
I'm Jade Turner.
And I'm Emma Chandler.
And we are here, as we are every week, to discuss another episode of the original Muppet Show. And this week we are covering, well, it's quite a little grab bag of good things and bad things and plenty to talk about. Jade, why don't you give us some of the broadcast history for this one?
Sure. So this is the fourth episode on Disney+, and again, following last week, we are still on even footing here because this was the fourth episode shown in the original broadcast run, and that was shown on the 4th of October, 1976. And it was also the fourth episode made, and it's also now episode 4 on Disney+. So all the fours, yay!
Wow.
Cohesion!
And as usual, it was written by Jack Burns, Mark London, Jim Henson and Jerry Jewell, and directed by Peter Harris. So very, very familiar, stable ground here, which is lovely.
Well, stable?
Well, to start with, to start with.
Of course. And Emma, who the heck is our guest this week?
Well, I definitely had to have a look on Google to find out a bit about Ruth Buzzi. But basically, she's a comedian. She's been in a lot of variety shows, a lot of sitcoms. She's a voice of the Pound Puppies. I mean, who doesn't remember that?
I don't remember the Pound Puppies, Emma. What are the Pound Puppies?
You used to be able to adopt them and, you get a little certificate. Jade, you must remember the Pound Puppies.
Yeah, I remember the Pound Puppies, and there were loads of adverts for them as well.
But were they toys or did they have a show?
Yeah, they had both.
They were toys. I don't know whether they were toys first and then they became a TV show or whether it was the other way around, but they were definitely toys.
It's a toygetic programming.
Yeah.
So I was quite excited when I found that out. And then apparently she was Screech's mum on Saved by the Bell.
I vaguely recognised her, so that must be where I recognised her from. Because
I kind of thought she reminded me a bit of a mix of Frenchie and Jan from Grease.
That's a good show. I thought her voice was quite Jamie Lee Curtis-esque. In the talk spot with Kermit, there was something a little bit Jamie Lee Curtis about her voice, but yeah, I don't know her at all.
I did no idea at all.
Quite a revelation.
I know they gave a shout out to Laugh-In on the show, which is obviously a very prolific variety show, sorry, just completely forgot the word, on American television. But I mean, I've never seen an episode of that, and never seen this woman before in my life. And what impression did you guys come away with of Ruth Buzzi?
I thought she was so up for it and so kind of committed and into it and really interactive with the Muppets when she was performing with them. And I was amazed at how much she used her entire body in her performances. Several times we had her literally going over the top of things, throwing herself around, really, really putting everything into it. And yeah, I overall, I enjoyed her performance on The Muppet Show. I felt like she was a good guest host for the Muppets because she matched them in terms of their sort of style and tone and anarchy. And yeah, I mean, I'm the same as you, Lewis. I've never seen Laugh-In. I've never seen her on it. I can't speak to what her kind of star persona is outside of what we've seen today. But yeah, I thought she was a good match for the Muppet Show. What about you, Emma?
I kind of thought she had quite a slapstick element to her, and she also reminded me of Miranda Hart, and her whole sitcom of where she kind of falls into a grave slips off a bar, like, I don't know, all those crazy zany things that she does, it kind of echoed that for me as well. I think that's the kind of performer that Ruth is, and I think, like you say, Jade, she really like matched the Muppets energy, like in all of the skits and songs and bits that she did throughout the show.
She gave me a bit of a Carol Burnett vibe.
Yeah.
And I've just done a little jump onto her Wikipedia, and apparently they sort of worked around each other at various different points over the sort of 50s to 70s, like, and I suppose being sort of women, one of the few women in comedy at that time, that's kind of not surprising. But I certainly got that kind of energy from her, and maybe a bit of a Gilda Radner vibe as well. I don't know if that's also because, you know, like, they're sort of, again, zany. Emma, the word zany is exactly right, actually. Sort of that kind of high energy, sort of brunette woman with like very angular features. But yeah, I felt like she was lumbered with some quite bizarre material, but maybe we can get into that as we go on. So, well, we might as well dive in. I mean, the first thing we really get after the introduction is a sort of proper appearance from Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem.
Yesterday my life was filled with rain. Too slow. You smiled at me and really eased the pain. Dark days are done. Bright days are here. My sunny one shines so sincere. Oh, sunny one so true. I love you. Bastard! Sunny, alright! Thank you for the sunshine bouquet. Sunny, thank you for the love you brought my way.
Their first kind of full number as a complete band, am I correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the first time we've seen them all together. Although, can I just point out that Kermit needs to check himself with his introduction, because he says, hit it, boys. And Janice is very much there, which I was like...
Absolutely.
Kermit, no. You've got to recognise that Janice is there and she is rocking. So, yeah, sorry. Just had to get that in there. There's not enough female representation in the Muppets at the best of times, but to erase the fact that Janice is part of the Electric Mayhem is very rude. I'm not impressed.
I agree. I mean, we are recording this the day after International Women's Day, and the banner of women falls to Muppets as well. So I think that's incredibly important that we check Kermit's misogyny at the stage door. It's kind of the perfect encapsulation of Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem. They're doing the sort of number, they all look a bit cool, and then you've just got Animal getting carried away and picking up the tempo, and it's a perfect encapsulation of their entire shtick, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it was really, really well done. Like, there was one part where the camera panned around
I know exactly what you're going to say.
The band,
I know exactly
and
what
Dr. Teeth looked at the camera and followed it, and it was so
amazing.
cool. Like, I literally for a minute kind of forgot that he was a Muppet. Like, it was like an actual performer in a rock band, you know, playing up to the camera. And it was just, oh my God, the craft of it was perfect. I loved it.
He did a little eyebrow raise, I swear,
did.
or like his eyes widened somehow, being like, oh, there goes Animal, he's mucking it up again. I was like, oh my God, like, how is he doing this?
I definitely find, like, when we see them, like, out of all of them, sometimes they do seem the most like lifelike, and like you say, Jade, like, it's like a wow, like their movements and their reactions and their like interplay with each other, it works really well, and you really get into it and you just kind of really believe it, and like you say, you almost feel like it's a real band, and like you say, especially that bit with the camera, like, that was so clever.
Really cool.
It's the illusion of the instruments being played.
Yes.
So solid that you never question it. No. I was sort of thinking it as I was watching this skit. I was like, I never questioned that Animal is playing those drums, and I never questioned that Dr. Teeth is playing the piano. Like, I'm just like, yeah, it never looks out of place. I mean, when you think about, like, when we talked about the Jim Neighbours episode, when I called out Jim Neighbours' terrible fake fiddle playing, and then you compare that to, you've got some puppets playing these instruments. They're not actually playing them, but I never doubt for a moment that they are. It's so great. And that's before it even adds on the level of it's also hilarious.
And not to jump ahead, but I really felt that with Rolf's performance this week as well, with the Never Made an Onion Cry. He was so into it, and he was having so much fun singing about mashed potatoes and peeled bananas, and we'll get into it later, but
yeah, we'll get to it.
He was loving it. And it's always the same with the Electric Mayhem. Like, they're just a band who are rocking out, and and then you add in Animal going crazy and upping the tempo every 10-20 seconds. Like, it was a really, really fun start to the episode, and amazing to see the Electric Mayhem in their full glory, because as you said, we haven't really seen that yet, so it was nice.
And I felt it led into quite a nice kind of cohesive, albeit mad, backstage runner for this episode. Like the fact that they come off and they're still kind of a bit peeved that Animal has kind of messed up the number, and then we go straight into, it pans with them, and then we follow Kermit to Scooter coming in with his big box thing. And look, I know I'm saying it almost every episode now, but Scooter he's a dick. I'm sorry, like, Scooter's a dick. You're gonna have to put a parental warning on this one. I'm so mad at him when Kermit was like, why can you bring this great big box? And here he's like, because my uncle owns the theater. I was like, you deserve to be punched in the goddamn face, Scooter. Like, chuck him out, Kermit. He's not worth it.
I think you have to forgive him, though, because he bought Mechanical Kermit in, Lewis, which was like a forerunner of Constantine, and I was just having so much fun with Mechanical Kermit, and also led to, again, sorry I keep jumping forward, but led to our first proper Kermit Piggy interaction of the show, I think, so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I mean I'm fed up of the punchline being about Scooter's uncle, and that just being an acceptable way for things to sort of happen. But I can forgive Scooter for bringing in Mechanical Kermit, because it led to what I think is one of the better runners of the series thus far.
It gave so much to the episode. Like it was, because sometimes when we cut backstage, it really feels a bit desperate sometimes, but
and I think it just quite often can really bring the energy down. Whatever's going on stage is not matched in any way by whatever's happening with Fozzie or Scooter, or I don't know, whatever's happening. But like this one, again, I think it gave a sort of, even if a lot of the sketches didn't necessarily have a coherence to them, because the runner was good, there was a coherence to the episode. And I think it was tonally quite similar the whole way through, with relatively high energy the whole way through
definitely.
as well.
The puppeteering of the Clockwork Kermit was really interesting, and I mean, and alarming. Like it certainly fell into it again, the sort of slight, like uncanny valley vibe of like, oh, this is Kermit, but it's also really not Kermit. And I mean, I couldn't stop thinking about Muppets Most Wanted the entire time.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
all he was missing was like a black hoodie and a mole. So like,
yes,
and it would have just been, and obviously the Russian, general Eastern European accent.
We'll say Russian.
Let's say Russian. What are they going to do? I mean, I'm never going to Russia.
I don't know. Please don't come after us.
You'll come back to the podcast next week, and
there'll be 3 empty squares.
We'll have been overtaken by hackers.
I was going to say it's going to be Lustenstein, and it'll just be me, but my hair will be parted a different way, and I'll have a mole on my cheek. Let's begin Muppet Podcast. Hello, and welcome to Muppetsational.
I mean, if it means Tina Fey's coming to join us, then I am fine, quite frankly.
Yeah, thanks. Please, you're not going to, like, spring me from, like, the podcast Gulag.
Yes, fine, I'll come and get you from the podcast Gulag, but only if Tina Fey's there.
Gulag?
Sorry, I'm not going to Siberia, so...
But Emma, you could wear one of those big, fluffy Dr. Zhivago hats.
Oh, there is a plus side.
You would look good in that.
I would, wouldn't I?
I tell you what didn't look good this week was the minute they cut to that chandelier and we had to go into a goddamn ballroom sketch.
Oh.
Yikes.
I mean, it was nice to see Rolf in there. That was good. I mean, when he came, and his little joke was, fun. I'm trying to remember what his...
She said, I've got a bone to pick with you, and he said he'd already buried it.
That was it. I was like, cool, fair enough, and it was nice to see him. But yeah, just these weird off-the-rack Muppets, just like bumping around. Like even my favourite gingerhead chorus girl was in there, and even she didn't really raise an impression with me this week.
The bit I thought was odd with the puns this week, they returned to a few of them. You know, normally they're sort of ba-boom, and then you just move on. But
I was going to say,
one...
it doesn't have a because there's
no
no punchline. It's
there's
just
no
it's
just ba-boom. But the whole thing with the scary blue Muppet, who we've now seen quite a few times and who had quite a presence in this episode, the whole thing with him and his 3 feet, and it kept coming back to it and he kept adding on to it. And the eventual punchline of him falling over because he'd lifted his 3 feet up, fine. But you could have got to that so much quicker. I mean, again, it was just unnecessarily long, I felt like.
I agree. But I did enjoy the button that did come at the end of the ballroom sketch where we cut to Statler and Waldorf. And he was like, I'm going to go and stretch my legs. And then Animal pops. I was like, I'll do it for you. And just, he was like, like Animal, it can just sort of like burst out of nowhere. And again, because we'd sort of got to hang out with him earlier on in the episode, it was just nice that they just had a bit more of a cohesion to who's popping up here and where. Like, it was all just really nicely well seeded.
Yeah, I agree. Thinking about the fact that it's the 4th episode, it does feel like they're settling into it a bit more. And that there is that kind of thought of how do we make it feel like one episode of a TV show rather than just a ton of sketches that have been...
Yeah.
That just happen to be next to one another chronologically.
Because I think we've had episodes that have felt maybe almost more like a clip show with the backstage just feeling like random, almost filler material. But yeah, even though maybe this wasn't my favourite episode, the backstage cohesion and the building of the world felt really nice. Like, for example, we get to see Kermit's dressing room for the first time.
Yeah, is that the first time we've seen the dressing room?
I think so. Emma, can you remember?
Yeah, because I don't think we've ever actually gone inside a dressing room. We always see the row of them and people come out of them and then down the stairs. But I think that is true. I think that's the first time we've been inside. So yeah, no, it's pretty cool.
And it leads us to a very, classic bit of comedy, vaudeville, Marx Brothers business, which is the mirror sketch. Well, it's not even a sketch because I suppose it's off stage. So the mirror bit, where you have, your protagonist go and stand in front of, although in the context of it, it's like, so they're just standing in front of an empty frame that looks like a mirror, where another person then pops out from the side who looks identical to them, and they have to parrot their movement so that they think it's not a mirror. No, it is a mirror. God, hang on. My mind is blown. Hang on.
It's essentially like it's from Duck Soup, so it is a...
Yes, thank you. Oh, I couldn't remember which Marx Brothers thing it was from, but it's a bit of classic comedy business that has popped up in everything from, almost every Tina Fey property has parodied it at some point, usually with some self-obsessed character looking into a mirror. But The Simpsons has done it. Countless cartoons have done it. It's a good bit.
I think the Vicar of Dibley's done it as well, haven't they?
Yes.
With Darcy Bustle when she was a ballerina. I think it was like a talent show and ballerina, and they did the mirror, and she was the other side of the mirror.
Yeah, you're right.
I thought they did an amazing job on this, though. Not only were the bits that were obviously meant to be mirrored perfectly, genuinely mirrored perfectly by the two puppeteers, but also the bits that weren't mirrored perfectly when mechanical Kermit was really playing up or kind of giving a wink to the camera or whatever it might have been that he was doing. They were also executed really, really well. And there was a fluidity to their movement, especially when they did move beyond the confines of the mirror frame, that it was just really lovely to watch and really genuinely quite funny for a skit that, again, I'm sure in the 70s it wasn't exactly a new skit, but certainly now, as you've both been saying, has been done to death. But still fun when the Muppets do it. Yeah,
and when you think that, I was under the impression that it was Jim Henson doing both of them. Like, the way that it was quite so fluid, I assumed that he had Kermit on one arm and he had the mechanical one on the other, but actually even to do that, so the little moments where Clockwork Kermit would turn out, when I think about like the mental capacity necessary to make that work, I'd be like, I'm afraid I can't do this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, it must have taken a lot of mental gymnastics to do that.
I thought it was, logistically very good.
It's kind of like voguing. I appreciate watching it, but I don't know how it's done. I just watch it in awe and just go, wow, look at the focus that must take to do that. I can't do that because I'm not talented. But I might try it when drunk. Either puppeteering or voguing.
I have a feeling that voguing drunk might be slightly easier than Jim Henson
Puppeteering.
performing two Kermits at the same time with one not quite mirroring the other. But I might be wrong.
I don't know. You see the gals at the ball when they start, throwing down those shapes. It's quite something. You can have an eye out. But I suppose I could do that with a puppet as well.
Did you see actually in the
Yes, I know exactly what you're going to say.
in the interrogation sketch, one of the Muppets hit, again, it was the little blue one, hit Ruth Buzzi in the eye, and she sort of was like, oh. I was like, oh dear.
Yeah.
We've nearly got another Sandy Duncan on our hands there.
Oh, that was a low.
Clearly a joke. I don't think a bit of foam is going to take out someone's eye, but I might be wrong.
It was a very sharp bit on that blue Muppet that hit her in the eyes, but it was the fact that she just for a few seconds had to keep talking, but was like squinting with that quite long monologue that she had to gamely get through. But we will get there.
And then we move on to Sam the Eagle introducing Wayne and Wanda.
It's so strange that Sam the Eagle is now just Wayne and Wanda's personal lead-in person.
Well, he was actually in this episode more than he's been in all the other ones so far. But yeah, I mean, essentially he's just Wayne and Wanda's hype man?
Agent?
I don't know at this point.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say, Jade. He's their hype man.
Is he their pastor as well?
Maybe.
They're religious people.
I loved in his intro this week, though, he said they're sure to get it right, which I thought was hysterical. It's like even he's losing his rag with the fact that they can't seem to execute any of these songs correctly. They might be his moral compass, but he's not digging them.
I was slightly disappointed that I wonder, what did each of you think the thing that was going to go wrong in the Wayne and Wanda sketch was going to be?
I honestly I was wondering whether it was going to be like another storm or something because they were in the boat. I didn't think they were just going to sink. Just out of nowhere.
Gently lower into the floor.
Yeah, and also I felt it went on for a long time until they started to sink as well. I was like, something's going to happen, something big is going to happen because they're drawing this out quite a lot. And then, like you say, they slowly sink to the floor.
Yeah, I thought that Wanda was going to get smacked in the face with the oar. That's what I was kind of hoping was going to happen. And she would be trying to, gamely get on with the song as Wayne, would be continually...
Yeah, she could have gone flying out of the boat. That might have been quite funny. If she'd have gone sailing through the air, that would have been pretty amusing.
Even the sinking, it was just such a, gentle, two puppeteers slowly lower a boat. I thought if it could have raised up the Titanic and then start to slowly sink down with Wanda holding desperately onto the edge of the railing or something. It was nice to see a bit more of them, but it didn't. You're right, Emma. The build up wasn't worth the payoff.
And also, all of the other ones so far, the lyrics have basically dictated what's happened to them. I didn't hear a lyric about the boat sinking. They were still just going on about rowing and being on the boat. And was there a lyric about spooning, or did I imagine that?
Yes, there was. And I was like, I didn't know spooning was a word that sort of went
unless
back
it meant something different.
Far.
Maybe it meant something different.
Oh, maybe is spooning at one another looking doe-eyed
lovingly
at somebody?
Maybe,
possibly.
Because I read it was are they talking about cuddling? I didn't know that went back to 1976, but yeah.
The song's from 1912, so surely spooning didn't mean spooning.
Yeah, I think it is to look at somebody with kind of devotion. That is kind of clicking something in my head. God knows where that's from.
Shall we do the really boring thing and Google
Let's
it?
Google it.
I could, because the only thing that when I tried to think, what other songs do I know that mentioned spooning? And all I could think was the fairy godmother song from Shrek 2, where she's like, you can spoon on the moon with the prince to this tune. I was like, well, that's 2004, so that's not going back far enough to work out if it means anything else.
So
Go on,
the
Jade.
3 definitions on Google are to literally spoon, as in to put something in someone's mouth.
Cool. I don't think they were talking about that.
To, I've never heard of this one, to hit a ball up into the air with a soft or weak stroke.
Sounds like a cricket thing, maybe. I don't
I've
know.
no idea, but we're not sporty people, so that's fine. And then
We're doing a podcast about the Muppets. Kels agrees that we aren't sporty people. I don't think we could be any further from competitive sport if we tried.
Just no to the sport.
No.
And then the last one is, it says dated and informal, is behaving in an amorous way. And then it says kiss and cuddle. So maybe it always was sort of a little bit of hanky-panky.
Oh,
I don't know.
I love the word hanky-panky.
Hanky-panky, great word.
Like the word argle-bargle. I think we got onto a little argle-bargle on the road.
Wow.
Oh, God. Argle-bargle. Speaking of nonsense, this news flash was complete argle-bargle.
I didn't even really get it. Did I miss a joke here?
No, I watched it twice and then I looked it up and I still did not understand the joke. So I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I think it must have just been absurdism, right? Because it's like the Atlantic Ocean has been stolen. They think it's in Newark, and and 500 fish. I think it's just
That bit I sort of all got. It was the bit at the end where they said that the ransom note said they wanted 2 Christmases and cuddles with mum or something, and I was like, what? Who is holding the Atlantic Ocean hostage? What's happening?
I'm wondering again whether it's a case of the 1970s marijuana. It's sort of just being like, this is crazy, man. Like, it's like the sort of thing that Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem are probably saying in their tour bus after they came off and did their first number. It's like, hey, man, we wrote this joke for the news flash. We think it's really happening. And I'm just like thinking what they might be doing in the bus.
I think that is exactly what they were doing on the bus, because
Yeah.
nobody in their sane mind would have written that joke.
Yeah, I just keep willing the news flash to work. Like, I just keep waiting. But, until then, I'll just keep looking at his soft, felty nose and thinking about how ergonomically pleasing it is. And just like, but we won't go into that again.
At least it was very short, and then we moved into...
What a compliment.
Yes, well, I'm full of them. Full of them. We moved into Kermit introducing Ruth, which was when he mentioned about laughing. And he also mentioned that she's a lot of fun at parties, which made me really wonder what on earth Kermit and Ruth Buzzi have been up to at parties. And does Piggy know? Because she would not be a happy pig, I don't think.
She would not be happy.
You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. Heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. Last love was right. And I thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes.
This number was crazy. I don't really I did enjoy it, but there was so much going on, like right from the beginning, mainly with Ruth Buzzi's insane hat. Like, it was sort of like a little...
Do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Moira Rose, like a precursor to her like crazy outfits, like the whole Pope hat going on, and
It was a Pope hat. That's what I wrote down. I wrote down nice Pope hat.
yeah, I literally wrote Moira Rose Pope hat.
It wasn't the most flattering hat. It didn't help that it had a very similar shape to her jawline and chin, so it just sort of made her face look like an... What? Look, she has a very defined chin and jaw.
I'm not... Keep Keep digging. Keep
I don't
digging.
think there's anything wrong with having a very defined face. Like, Katharine Hepburn had enormous cheekbones. And,
That's a little bit different than saying
Bethany
she's got a
Frankel has
big-ass
wide
chin.
jaw. That's the only person I can think of. But she did have a large chin, and it was just unfortunate that they both sort of paralleled each other slightly, and it gave her a very, almond-shaped face. It just, I don't get, she's a very attractive woman. Obviously, because it's 1970s, they wouldn't let an unattractive woman on television. What are you talking about? But that threw me. And then just the whole setup, this weird kind of once upon a mattress / medieval times restaurant vibe. And it was manic. I did enjoy it. It felt a little sloppy in places, but then at the same time, I was so impressed by her sheer sort of energy the whole time. What did you guys think?
I loved it. I think it was probably my highlight of the episode, to be honest. I just felt like her and Sweetums both absolutely threw themselves at it. It seemed like nothing was off. I was going to say nothing was off the table, except both of them were literally off the table many times. But, they were up for anything. Anything was game. The way that she was essentially doing gymnastics around the room and then holding on to Sweetums for dear life and just throwing herself about. I hadn't particularly thought about Miranda earlier, Emma, but you saying that, it is. But I think it's sort of taken to another level because it's not just her being clumsy or what a goof I am. It's her... I don't know, it is almost like if there'd been a springboard off stage and she'd run off and then sprung back over and done a somersault, that wouldn't have been out of place, would it?
No.
It was so...
Yeah,
no,
I can see that actually. It's true, yeah.
Such high energy.
It's like that Carol Channing number in Thoroughly Modern Millie, Do It Again, where she just gets thrown around by all those gymnasts for 4 minutes. While she's like, do it again. And you're like, what is happening?
And I don't know, the song, such a classic song. And I felt like it was obviously playing on that kind of Beauty and the Beast vibe of her being with a monster, but I guess a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome, being completely and utterly besotted with him, but then taking it too far.
Oh, that makes more sense to me now. Yeah, I can see that.
Did you not?
No, I was like, is it a medieval...
You just thought it was chaos?
Chaos at a medieval banquet. I guess, that sort of, kind of what, maybe what throwing out time...
A themed restaurant that's gone
throw
wrong.
out time at medieval times restaurant would be like. You've got, these poor waitresses a la Ruth Buzzi trying to, charm these drunk, bearded men out of the establishment to the point where they have to smash a chair over him. It was just... it was crazy. It was a lot of fun.
It also finished with what is becoming a recurring petite woman and monster Muppet situation, which was when she blew on him and he fell over in the same way that Sandy Duncan had blown on the monster Muppets with her whiskey breath and they'd fallen over.
Yes, and Rita Moreno had smashed a chair over Muppet
She
Man
did.
during the French
She
Tango.
did. Yes.
Nothing more hilarious than a tiny woman smashing an adult-sized Muppet with some furniture.
Hey, I enjoyed it.
What could be more hilarious?
And actually, we had another callback because Sweetums at the end says, my kind of woman, which is what Animal said at the end of Fever, too.
I know.
Are we just saying this was a rehash? I don't think it was, but yeah. I suppose we've got some pertinent themes running through these sketches already.
The Muppets feisty women who destroy the set.
Emma, do you're not looking too amused? Was this not up your alley? You, Emma?
Oh, sorry. I didn't realise
Emma looked like she'd received traumatic news and it just frozen.
Sorry, I didn't hear you say Emma, Jade. I don't know. It's sort of cut out. So I was
No, okay. Emma,
to
did you what did you think of this? Basically, was what I was saying. You didn't look very impressed.
No, I
just zoned out.
She's just like.
I did because I didn't think you were talking to me, so I just
thanks,
I sort of
Emmy.
froze,
Not
I wasn't
taking
sure.
part in the conversation.
Good to know.
Sorry.
It's okay.
No, go on. So what did you think?
What did you
No,
think?
I thought it was good. I think it was kind of quite zany and crazy, but it was comedic. And I mean, Ruth definitely threw herself into it, and
Yeah.
Sweetums gave as good as he could as well. And yeah, I just think it was funny because she matched the energy. And like you said, we had the moment with the chair. There seems to be a running theme. But no, I think it was good. It was nice to see someone like really interact and really kind of get into the fun and kind of have a good time.
Sweetums looks really nice to cuddle.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It does.
I think something you said earlier, Lewis, about whether or not she was given good material to work with, I kind of felt like with this being our 3 introduction to her anyway, because we obviously didn't know her, I felt like they'd written this for her. And I felt like that actually with all of her sketches, that they'd, as a comedienne, they'd worked with her and gone, what is it that you can do? What are your skills? What are your, let's play to your strengths, essentially. Because, you couldn't have given this piece to probably any of the other women that we've seen before. I mean, imagine Juliet Prowse doing this.
Oh my goodness.
It's just not going to happen.
Or the senior Connie Stevens.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine? She wouldn't be able,
Connie Stevens.
she wouldn't be able to wear the hairpiece.
In an ambulance.
I was going to say her hairpiece would get caught in animal. Not in animal. Her hairpiece would get caught in Sweetums. You wouldn't be able to tell where it started and where it finished. No, Jade, you are right. It's kind of like an SNL thing, isn't it? Where they sort of write the material to their strengths. And obviously they have this, and then they have her doing yoga later on. So clearly she's very athletic and very good with her body and physical comedy. But I just felt like maybe it hadn't been just rehearsed to a level where it felt sharp. It just felt a bit messy in places. There would be moments where they got there, but there's a few times, and maybe that's just the consequence of trying to do a physical comedy number with somebody in a very large full Muppet suit. Do you know what I mean? There's only so much vision they have and so much control they have within the puppet.
I also not to put it down too much, but it was also the 70s. I mean, there's an argument that would say that now, with the Disney money that the Muppets have, they would obviously be able to rehearse and get it absolutely spot on. They made this show in a couple of days.
Yes, absolutely.
There's also only so much time that they would have had to work on each sketch. So
yeah.
I think, again, in that kind of SNL vein, there's a reason that the live ones don't look like the digital shorts.
Yes. No, you're quite right. Yeah. And actually, I suppose considering it that way, it was pretty good considering.
Yeah, I think she definitely, she threw herself into it because you could see, every move she made, she had intent.
Yes.
And I think, if it was like you say, if it was someone like Juliet Prowse, it just wouldn't have worked and they wouldn't have pitched it to her anyway. But I think you definitely needed someone who was able to do it and kind of like you said, she was all over the table. She was here, she was there. She was hitting a chair over Sweetum's head. I think you definitely needed someone of her caliber to be able to pull it off.
And she lip synced the whole time.
She did.
Yeah, she did good. Yeah, she kept the mouth going.
That's very impressive because literally I cannot do that because I can't. I literally
lip-sync?
Quietly sing a song. I can't lip sync.
What?
At all.
What? You
Lewis,
can't just mouth the words.
Lewis, at least she's participating in the conversation currently. Don't question it, okay? Just let her.
Yeah.
She'll just zone out again.
It's late night. I'm sorry, okay?
Emma, it's 9 p.m. What are you talking about? Oh, for God's sake. Next time you're not allowed to record the podcast in loungewear. It's like...
I think that's what it is. I'm too relaxed. I'm just
We're going to get you a corset, all right?
Yeah, I want the home... There's no natural daylight. I need the daylight.
What are you, a house plant? For God's sake. Just... Stop drinking that Ovaltine, Emma, for God's sake. It's not helping. The section that came next, can I presume that the Rolf song was the UK spot?
That was the UK spot, yes.
What a waste! What a waste!
I know.
That was the best No, I am going to say it. It's the best UK spot that we've had so far. And
definitely.
The song was hilarious. I kind of want to sing that now. All the little bits in it, I made an artichoke. I've whipped cream. I even made a melon ball. The whole thing, the vamp leading up to it. He said the non sequitur with the onion at the beginning of that sort of preamble. And I was like, oh God, that's not going to have anything to do with anything. And then it actually did. The whole song sort of built off of that little preamble, which usually it doesn't when we have these things. It was fantastic. I really liked it.
I absolutely loved it.
It was really good. I was going to say, I made the notes as well, melon ball and artichoke. And it was just really clever. And like you said, I think it was really sad that it was the UK spot. Like, it was a really good song and really kind of cleverly played out.
Mm.
And as I said earlier, I was so impressed with Rolf's performance.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just that the song was fun, because it was, and the wordplay was really ingenious, but actually Jim Henson's performance of Rolf was killer. I think that's my favourite Rolf. I know Rolf was my MVMP last week because he was amazing as Sherlock Holmes, and he was. But I think this was the Rolf that we know and love.
Yeah.
Singing his song, getting super into it, just being a really thoroughly entertaining dog. Yay!
You know what I miss with Rolf? There's been no more Dr. Bob.
Yeah,
I mean,
where's Dr. Bob
what's
gone?
been happening?
Well, I suppose
what's happened to Dr. Bob?
Well, if we think about it, technically in the chronology, I think Rita Moreno's episode would be the next one we would watch if we're watching it in order, which I think is when Dr. Bob is introduced. So maybe from this point onwards, when we go to our next episode, we can expect more Veterinaries Hospital, because I think that's when it was introduced. So he's coming back, Emma. He's coming back.
Yay!
I also just want to mention really quickly, and I know we'll talk about it probably later, but I cannot believe this was the UK spot over You Can't Roller Skate in a Buffalo Herd, because that was so forgettable and terrible to me. You're both looking at me with blank faces.
Oh my God, because I had to look at my notes being like, what the hell was that? And I was like, oh, it was the Jug Band.
Yes.
Oh,
Like
is that the name of
the
the
Bumpkins?
God, yeah, no, the Jug Band was
the
bad.
Hick Muppets.
Yeah, it's the Hick Muppets.
No.
And that, I mean, you know, if you're going to make something the UK spot, why the hell not make that the UK spot, for God's
Yeah,
sake?
that was a will we get to that? What's there to say?
It was terrible.
Boring and stupid.
Absolutely. That's fine. The best bit was when he said at the end, "You can be happy if this is the end of the song." And I said, I am. Thank you very much.
I liked what one of the Hicks had there was a blue one on like the far right hand side that sort of said something like like I can't even remember. It was glazed over so much, but I was like, oh, he's fun. But all I could think about was like, God, why does that Muppet just have one tooth?
I know. The teeth, the killer.
They should have no teeth, never teeth. Even a singular tooth should not be there. It's just alarming.
Well, that's fine. We've talked about that now, so now we can just focus on the rest of the episode. So the bit that came after this was the talk spot with Ruth and Kermit, which, Lewis, the
material was just like, just talking about fat and talking about like, I'm very healthy and just, I don't know, it was very straight. It's like they built it kind of around her, again, athleticism, like she does yoga, she can throw herself around in a sketch. So now we're going to talk about the fact that she doesn't eat fat, and look, she's not fat. And the first half just didn't really land with me particularly well. I get it was kind of like a bit and she was meant to have misunderstood, but even Kermit didn't look particularly impressed, particularly when he got slapped on the back and his legs went like, albeit adorably.
Now we're talking about it, I'm thinking about the fact that the Joel Grey talk spot last week was very weak as well. And I wonder if this is actually one of the segments that, because we've already seen some episodes that they actually made later.
Ah, yes. That makes sense.
Maybe they really worked
Yeah.
on them. Because you think how great like the Rita Moreno one is.
The Sandy Duncan one.
True.
Sandy Duncan one's fun. Connie Stevens was pretty fun.
Connie Stevens was filth. Absolute filth.
This and the Joel Grey one are meh. Very
Yeah,
meh, I think.
very meh.
In comparison to those ones anyway.
It did have a joke that I do always love. It's basically a variation on the joke of the Mrs. Doubtfire joke of like the,
Yes.
he was quite fond of the drink. Oh, he was an alcoholic. No, he was hit by a Guinness truck. It's just... Kermit's version of that with the dairy products, which I
Yeah, the cheese.
yeah.
The one bit of it that I really liked as well was Ruth and Kermit kind of pushed their noses together and nuzzled noses, and that was adorable, and I want to do that with Kermit. So that was just sorry, that's it. That's all I have to say about that.
Is that on your bucket list, Jade?
That would definitely be on my bucket list. If I saw Kermit, that nose is getting smushed. That's all I have to say about that.
See, how come when you say that it's adorable, but when I talk about wanting to touch the newsreader's nose, it's suddenly like a creep?
Because you talked about it for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, Jade was cute. It was a cute anecdote. It was a cute moment. Yours was just creepy.
I was hungover. I was needy. I watched that episode in a stupor. That's probably why.
Also, you were, not that the listeners can see it, but you were literally like stroking the screen as you were saying it. I mean, it was pretty creepy.
I was holding them in front of me to give the impression of the shape of the nose. It's fine.
I understand,
Sure.
Lewis, but it didn't make it any less creepy.
Tell you what wasn't creepy, but was fun, the moment where Kermit called out the laugh track.
Yes.
Which is a thing that we haven't really acknowledged, actually, in all the episodes we've covered so far, is this sort of this underscoring that they give, which is obviously an entirely fictional laugh track. Like, it's canned laughter.
It's so good. Do you guys not think it's such a good laugh track? Like,
I
compared
do,
to the laugh
because
tracks we get now, I mean, it's impeccable. I think it is anyway. It sounds natural.
Yeah,
a lot of the time.
Oh, sorry, Jade. Yeah, no, I agree. I've never thought of it as a laugh track, to be honest. And like you say, some of the American sitcoms you get nowadays is so awful. It's just so, like, dialed in. But yeah, no, I really like that gag, actually. It was really funny. And actually, it did make me think, oh, yeah, they are using a laughter track. But you don't think about it. You just kind of get involved and just... You laugh at the same time that they're laughing. It's not like a forced laugh. It's very clever, actually.
I wonder if it's something to do with, and this is just a theory I'm just like chucking out there, because the show is from the 70s and it looks like a show from the 70s, as in like the camera quality, just everything about it. The laugh track doesn't seem quite so out of place because we're used to hearing a laugh track with older shows and it doesn't feel so out of place, whereas when we watch something now from like the 2010s onwards, when you'd see a show with a laugh track, because it's filmed in HD and everything looks more sharp and modern, then it feels kind of archaic because we're used to a laugh track in a context of older programs. So maybe it doesn't stick out here because it's an older program.
I think there is definitely something to that, but I also think I am not musical enough, but there's something about the quality of the laughing. You know, there's variation in it. It's not the same thing every time. There's moments where you do actually hear individual people going really crazy over a single joke or something. And then that's not the case for the next gag. You know, that might just be more of a general sort of tittering or whatever. Whereas I feel now with laugh tracks, they sort of, as with so much in our modern world, they go over the top constantly. And obviously it's at times that are just not even funny, but they just add it because... It's like, oh, it's meant to be a comedy. We need to make people think that other people think it's funny. And I mean, I don't always laugh at the same time as the laugh track. And I think some of that is obviously like the 1970s humour, which doesn't quite translate today. But I can at least understand why the laughs are in the place that they are on The Muppet Show. The first couple of episodes, I was like, oh, does it have an audience? And then I was like, no, of course it doesn't have an audience. Like that, they. So I think they've done a really, really good job with the laughing. And yeah, I would watch stuff with a laugh track today if it had that good a laugh track, if it didn't sound like the one that the BBC and CBS and whoever else use, because the ones now are just terrible.
One person that could always do with a laugh track is Fozzie Bear.
Aw, poor Fozzie Bear.
I enjoyed his interplay with Statler and Waldorf, again, because it didn't feel like...
Yeah.
It felt like more character building. It felt like it was more interplay building and playing. The jokes were coming off of their relationship rather than just like trying to bat a bad pun between each other or something. It just landed much better for me because it was working on their relationship. I really liked it.
I just felt sad for him still. Like, I agree with you. It is character building and you obviously get more of that interplay with Statler and Waldorf, but all of the laughs were coming from Statler and Waldorf being mean to him. None of the laughs were coming from Fozzie's jokes at all, or from him getting a good comeback in to Statler and Waldorf. Just doesn't still feel quite Fozzie to me. There's something.
Does it feel too cruel?
Yeah, I think so, a little bit. I know, in previous episodes we've talked about Kermit not feeling quite like Kermit. I just feel like the treatment of Fozzie at the moment is not as one of the main Muppets that we know and love. He's the butt of the joke. He shouldn't be the butt of the joke, I don't think.
It worked for me this week. I can't quantify why, but I think maybe just because the material was so strong, like the fact that they were, Statler and Waldorf were saying, like, this is your best act ever. You're the best straight man in the business. We've never got so many more laughs. Like, it's... I liked how it all worked together because the jokes were building off of their antagonism towards each other. It's solid because it trusts you understand who both these sets of characters are. It's not them just throwing around sort of tired jokes.
Yeah,
it just
half-baked jokes.
Yeah, I just liked it. I really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Statler and Waldorf are very funny in it, but I just feel bad for Fozzie. Basically.
I would say give him a cuddle, but as I said last week, he still looks a little grimy. Like I don't know if you saw like the back of his hands this week, and I was like, ugh, they look like greasy. Like he needs to be like put on a hot wash. Like he just needs to be put in the washing machine on like a hot wash and a condition, and then like left to air dry and just like fluff up a bit again. It just looks a bit matted.
I just had visions of someone with those big, those big like poofy things that they used to like put talcum powder on people with, and then that made me think of in Wizard of Oz when they all get dolled up at the Emerald City, and I've just got visions now of Fozzie going through the beauty parlour in the Emerald City.
Fluff, fluff here, fluff, fluff there, and a couple of Fozzie bears. That's how we love the day away in the Muppet Old Show of Oz. Thank you, improv. You're welcome, Emma.
We're doing a turn on the podcast. Are you going to do an accent in a minute?
And Emma has zoned out again.
She knows what happens when you start singing.
She's known it for the last 20 years of my life.
How many was that, Lewis?
Indeterminate age, still castable as a teenager.
Yeah, I was going to say you're 16 to, what is it, 29 age range.
It's not 16, Emma. But get some more Vaseline on the lens and get the cameras that they shoot Grace and Frankie with, and I can play a teenager.
Now, what did you both make of this military interrogation? Because I appreciated the kind of setup and the twist on it, but I don't know, there was something about it that didn't quite 100% work for me. Emma, do you want to kick us off with your thoughts on it?
I don't know. I just found it incredibly long, and I just didn't find it funny. It was kind of like she was kind of trying a bit too hard. And I don't know if it was because the material wasn't particularly great. Like, I get what they were trying to do. It was like they couldn't get her to shut up and everything. And she just kept going and going and going. But it just didn't tick. It just didn't work. I don't know. It didn't seem to sort of flow in any way. I'm not quite sure how you could have like improved on it. And I don't know if it could have been like the delivery or the way she did it, or... Like, obviously, they were getting exasperated because she just kept going. But it didn't quite work. It wasn't like a level that they hit. I don't think so.
I think it was too vague to begin.
Yeah.
Also, the bizarre kind of like shadow of somebody being taken off to be tortured. I was like, what is this? And then the two Muppets come in, and what I think we needed was a clearer establishment from those two interrogating Muppets that this is an interrogation. There wasn't a clear enough setup at the beginning to really get what was going on. And also maybe I wanted like a gag in her mouth that maybe they pull out or something. But maybe, considering she got whacked in the eye by one of them, like maybe they didn't want to get too close. The only thing that really stood out for me, to be honest, was I was pretty certain that she wasn't using cue cards and that she had learned all of that material.
Oh, yeah, she definitely learnt it.
I was trying to clock her eyeliner, and there was a few times where she was playing out, but then there was a lot of times where she was turning from side to side, and I was like, oh, she has learnt all this, so that's very impressive. But it's just, the actual structure of the sketch wasn't strong enough for me to get the joke. I think if you had just set it up a bit stronger in the beginning, all the material she had, I actually didn't mind. I thought it was quite funny and the escalation was quite fun. But because I wasn't sure where we were, my footing was a bit off. It's harder to laugh if you don't feel secure in the knowledge that the sketch is working.
I agree with you, Lewis. I think the setup should have been a lot stronger. And I also wonder if actually there should have been more of a definite payoff at the end. The little blue Muppet did threaten her at one point and say, we have ways of making you stop talking, which was obviously a fun reversal of ways of making you talk. Yeah. But then the Muppets could have brought out something you know, and it could have been a silly torture device. Like, there was a lot of tickling in this episode. It could have been like a giant feather to tickle her with or something as a way of like, you will stop. Or I don't know, but do you know what I mean? Like, it just kind of escalated and she just kept talking and then they were getting exasperated and then it just ended.
Do you know what they could have done? They could have fed her to Gorgon Heap.
Yes!
Like in the Sherlock Holmes
Oh God,
sketch.
don't bring him back. I find it like it was. I was already too thrown by the shadow puppet torture thing that started the sketch, let alone like Gorgon Deep coming from the like far distance to slowly eat Ruth Buzzi. It just all didn't gel.
I think it was just a missed opportunity. Like, it could have gelled much better than it did. Even with the escalating absurdity as it was, it could have had a better, I suppose, sort of casing to put it in at the start and the end, and that would have just set it off that much more, I think.
Somebody who didn't need any setting off was Miss Piggy, who gave us her almost perfect first ever hi-ya of the season. It was almost there. It wasn't quite. And I was like, oh my God, is it going to happen? And it kind of did. And she got to beat him up a bit. It was nice, again, to see some interplay between these Muppets that we really like, doing some character building comedy stuff. It was great.
It was really nice to see Piggy, being in love with Kermit, going after an imposter Kermit in the way that only Piggy knows how, because despite being the love of her life, she can never work out that it's not Kermit, apparently.
That she can still do it 40 years later in a theatrical version. It's just...
I just loved this. I loved seeing Piggy. I noticed at the start when she was hiding by his door, did you clock that she was hiding under her cape so she could do a big entrance and sort of present herself to him and be like, I'm here. I've been waiting for you, darling, and now I am here. And
I didn't, but I love it.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I was going to say, you need a cape for a good entrance, so she's got it covered.
She had it down. And yeah, I loved how Mechanical Kermit was so kind of like Jack the Lad. The opposite in a lot of ways of Kermit's very kind of demure, always wanting to kind of temper Piggy's expectations, temper her passion.
Well-meaning virgin.
Yes, exactly.
Not that I want to presume.
He's still got his virgin pin.
Nice to know it's good for something. Whereas, Robo Kermit is offering, Piggy the promise of figs.
Oh, I know. When he said bouncy baby figs.
It was so cute.
I know, it was very cute.
That was so cute.
But yeah, that was really great. That just worked solid. And I'm kind of looking forward to, I hope, from this point onwards, more interplay between Muppets.
So then we go from that, which was brilliant, and ends on the gag with the door and Mechanical Kermit, to going into the houses. And then there's like the whole gag of him saying his son is going to become a monastery. Like, what?
I think calling that a gag is a real
It's a
compliment.
Okay, well, it wasn't a gag. It was a stretch. Yeah, no, it was kind of disappointing because it was so good and it got so bad.
Yeah, it just felt out of place, and the joke was just terrible. I was like, ooh, interesting setup. I wonder what I was trying to think hotel, religious, bellhop, or trying to think of like bells. I was trying to think of some sort of punchline. My little brain was like ticking over. It's like, no, he's thinking about becoming a monastery. It's like, what? What did you just say, Terrace House? Like, as if that's like 20 seconds of my life I'm never going to get back because I had to talk to, like, at least we got to meet Gloria Goodbody in the panel
hilarious.
Discussion. Why is every single thing about Ruth Buzzi about her body or her athleticism? What an odd thing when she seems to be like a multi-hyphenate skilled performer. I don't know, it was just very strange. But her yoga was very impressive. I was in awe. I was like, God, I'm going to do a couple of those.
And she was wearing a wig as well. I mean, come on.
What more could you want?
What more could you ask for?
I know, it's like they took the accent character Bonanza that usually pops up in Newsflash and they put it into the panel sketch instead.
I wasn't really sure where the panel was going when Kermit asked the question of, is the human body obsolete? I was like, what? what? That's not a
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I did think the same as well. I was like, okay, so what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Okay, this is happening now.
Yeah, I wrote down the question in anticipation of being like, oh, well, I can ask Emma again what this panel show question so we can get Emma's panicked response. And I wrote down, I went, well, that's not even a proper question. Oh, damn it. Like, what a waste of my time.
I mean, I get that it was obviously just a setup so that she could show us her bendy flexibility, but yeah, I don't know. It was an odd setup all round, I think.
I mean, the only thing I can think of, and this is comparing it to when we said they've obviously done accent work because they want other jobs. Does she want an exercise video? Is that what she's aiming for? She wants to build an exercise video.
Maybe Ruth Buzzi could have been Jane Fonda had somebody actually paid attention to this episode.
That's it, Jade. That's it.
She could have been absolutely
She wanted to build a fitness empire.
household name who just won a Lifetime Achievement Award Golden Globe, and instead of that we're all like, Ruth Buzzi? Yeah. Who's that? Oh, she's Screech's mum. Great. Okay, wonderful.
Get the buzz with Ruth Buzzi. Like, just like, it could have been everything.
There could have been t-shirts.
My favourite part of this sketch though was Sam the Eagle, I have to say.
Yes.
I loved how much he loved her and how sort of taken with her he was, and then that he wanted to show off his wing lifts or whatever he called them.
And the fact that even though he clearly fancied her, when it got to the bit where it cut to the camera angle where we were seeing Sam the Eagle through Ruth Buzzi's back bent legs and arse cheek just sort of sitting there, I was really worried we were going to get into like a perverse Sam the Eagle kind of look, but then it wasn't. Thank God. He maintained his moral standing as Sam the Eagle, and particularly since talking about the body being obsolete, I worried that he was going to be like, well, there's nothing obsolete about this body. Do you know what I mean? I was really relieved it wasn't that. So kudos Sam the Eagle for resisting the urges.
Unlike Piggy and her friend on the other side of the panel,
whoever that guy was,
could not keep their trotters off one another. I don't know.
Yeah, they were going for a sausage roll in the hay.
Oh no!
Ba-bum.
Thank you.
Ba-bum ching.
Still better than the houses sketch.
And another great little button from Kermit on the end of that sketch as well, when and I had to rewind this to hear it because there was so much chaos. Yes. I didn't catch it the first time. But he said that next week they'd be talking about crowd control and riot suppression.
I know, I was trying to catch the end of that as well because I totally missed the one with Rita Moreno of the Latin American relations. Yeah. I couldn't hear it over the ruckus.
I just want to give a little shout out to the Booth Ruzzy joke at the end from Mechanical Kermit, which did make me giggle.
Booth Ruzzy.
Booth Ruzzy.
Booth Ruzzy.
And also, did you notice that Jim obviously had his hand kind of at a funny angle for Mechanical Kermit, especially at that end there, and Kermit's face was sort of lopsided, obviously to signal to us that it wasn't real Kermit, that it was Mechanical Kermit. Just thought it was a clever little bit of puppetry.
Genius.
It was.
Absolute genius.
The genius of Jim Henson. Jade, if you've got the mic, do you want to give us your MVMP for the week?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've just spoken about him, but I think Sam the Eagle, for me, is my MVMP because I feel like it's the first episode where we've really seen him other than just being Wayne and Wanda's hype man, which he still was, but he had the little bit with Ruth before the bumpkins, which was quite fun. And then the panel show, I thought he was really, really great. And it was a lot of fun to see him still being Sam the Eagle and this upstanding moral citizen, but having that little bit of interaction and also just having a little bit of flirtatious fun with the guest host. You know, that certainly was not what I expected coming into the episode. So I went with Sam the Eagle, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him outside of Wayne and Wanda in the coming weeks and months. How about you, Emma? Who is your MVMP?
I think this week it's going to be Sweetums.
Yeah.
I've kind of missed him. Aww. And you know what? I just think it was great. Him and Ruth's interaction in that whole song, kind of like playing off each other, like his reaction to her like blowing him over and the chair. And I just think he was great. And it was just nice to see him in like a bit of a different context this week. And I really liked their interplay. So yeah, I think for this week, my MVP is Sweetums. How about you, Lou?
I am actually going to go with Animal for my MVP this week. I just really enjoyed that we got a bit more of him, but we got him both with Electric Mayhem and sort of driving what I think was probably my favourite sketch of the entire episode, which came right up top with them singing Sunny. But then just a little button again with Statler and Waldorf up in the balcony, and actually just even from his appearance, I just suddenly felt myself going, oh yay, Animal's back.
Yeah.
And just like and so yeah, just for the fact that he facilitated a great sketch at the beginning and then also facilitated a great button, I'm going to go with Animal. I think it might now be time for our ratings for the week. I'm going to reverse the order now. Emma, what do you want to give this week's episode?
I think for this episode, I'm going to give it 6 bouncing baby figs out of 10. I know, I really liked that. I'm going to just use that for a few more days, bouncing baby figs. I thought there were some really good parts in this episode. I thought Ruth was really game as a host and getting involved. But I think from what we said, especially with the prison guard sketch, I think she could have been given a little bit more time to grow and develop those bits. But then when she does Too Good to Be True with Sweetums, that's really fun. I love the Sunny opening bit with the band, and also the mechanical Kermit Miss Piggy interplay throughout the episode as the runner I really enjoyed. So yeah, I think I'm going to give it a 6. And how about you, Jade? How did you feel about this week's episode?
I think largely the same as you, Emma, but I was thinking about it in comparison to the other episodes, obviously, that we've seen so far. And for me, I think I'm going to give it a 7, and I'm going to go 7 Booth Ruzzies. And I see Lewis is pulling a face. And
No, look, I'm not going to start shouting.
No. But the reason I think this is because I gave Rita Moreno's episode a 7. And to me, actually, although Rita was amazing and there were some good sketches in it, there actually were a few things like the runner, which we didn't even talk about because we all didn't like it that much. And there were also some other sketches, I was looking back through my notes, that I feel like actually, to me, this episode, the energy that Ruth Buzzi brought to the episode, and the way that she was so game, and the way that she kind of matched the Muppets, and exactly like you've just said, Emma, there were a lot of things to really like about it. There was only a few things that I didn't get on with as well. So to me, actually, although it's for different reasons that I'm giving this a 7, but I feel like as an overall episode, it was actually pretty cohesive and I did thoroughly enjoy it. So I feel like to give her anything less is to maybe basically be saying that Rita's episode was kind of on slightly more of a pedestal, and I actually feel like there were some weaker parts of Rita's episode. Overall, the caliber of this episode was very good. So yeah, 7 Booth Ruzzies. How about you, Lewis? Where are you going?
Now well, Jade, you've actually made me really think now, because I was originally probably going to give this a 5, which is I think what I gave Jim Neighbours. But now you're sort of talking about it in comparison to Rita's episode, which for me I'm still kind of holding as the benchmark. Because the thing is, all the sketches that featured Rita herself, I really, really enjoyed. And then maybe some of the other bits and bobs I didn't necessarily love so much. Conversely, in this episode, I wasn't hugely in love with the bits that Ruth Buzzi did. I liked them, but I didn't love them in the same way. I wasn't laughing in the same way I was with, even just French Tango from Rita Moreno's episode. But in terms of the offstage Muppet interplay, the character development, the funny sketch at the beginning,
I think there's a lot there. I think there's a lot in the episode.
There is. You're right. I think I'm still going to hedge my bets a little, and I'm going to give it 6 Dr. Teeth smiles to camera out of 10.
Very good.
Yeah, I think in terms of my own personal ranking, that's where it's going to go. So I did appreciate what this episode brought, but in terms of just simply as a viewer, I did still enjoy Rita's more. So I have to keep that on a higher level.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Thank you very much. Jade, have you got some Muppet philosophy for us?
I've gone with something that maybe isn't quite philosophy, more of a a discussion point. Not that I know this episode's probably already long enough, but I'm just curious to know what you both think of this, especially in relation to Ruth Buzzi, and also coming off the back of the Joel Grey episode, which obviously none of us enjoyed very much. So again, this is a quote from Jim Henson, the biography by Brian Jade Jones, and a quote from Henson himself, who said, "Some guests relate to us more easily than others. A person who is cool personally can play marvellously well with the Muppets." And to me, this speaks really clearly to how well Ruth Buzzi actually got on with the Muppets. And maybe when we've been a little bit disappointed by some guests who haven't seemed to enter their world in quite the same way. And I'm just curious what you both think, especially seeing as none of us know Ruth Buzzi, and whether you think actually that sense of just how she is as a person plays into what we get out of the episode and the other episodes that we've had already.
For me, what I like is when the Muppets can bring out a different aspect of the guest that they have. So it allows them to indulge in a silliness or indulge in a sort of Mickey taking of maybe their own persona or something. And while I can really appreciate Ruth Buzzi's energy, and I'd actually really like to see her in something that isn't the Muppet Show to sort of see what her kind of performance style is. I found her almost like slightly too overwhelming in this, and I didn't get to see much like light and shade to what her performance was. Whereas I think with other guests we've had, we have seen moments where they're being a bit scared by the Muppets, and then they're a bit, in love with the Muppets, or they fancy the Muppets, or they're being as silly as the Muppets, or they're being seriouser than the Muppets. Whereas she, as you say, was madcap all the way through. She was almost like a Muppet. But if you're like a Muppet, then you don't get that sort of interplay, really, or that kind of... what's the word?
Well, there's no friction. There's no kind of spark of people playing off, or not people and Muppets playing off each other, I guess.
So that's that's probably maybe also why I probably came away from this episode a little bit colder than I might do. What do you think, Emma?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. I do think that's her personality, though. I do think like the way, because I think every time we've seen someone and the way they've interacted with the Muppets and the way they've kind of played to their strengths, I think they are bringing their personality to the show. So I do think if we were to see her in something else, I think the way she acted and the way she kind of brought energy and was very slapstick and very comedic, I think that's her I feel like that's her as a person.
I suppose Ruth Buzzi can't help having a similar energy to the Muppets if she's on the Muppet Show. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's how I kind of feel about it, to be honest.
But I think your point is totally true, Lewis, which is that the problem with the Joel Grey episode was it didn't bring anything out of Joel Grey that we don't already know.
That's true,
and that we don't already expect of Joel Grey to bring to whatever it is that he's doing. Although it was maybe a slightly disappointing performance overall, he's still a consummate performer, and he just did that. But there was nothing else to it.
Yeah, whereas, Rita Moreno, consummate performer, but she was funny, she was serious, she was aggressive, she was sexy, and Joel Grey, I'm sure, could be all of those things as well. Well, he can be when he plays the MC. He's creepy and he's funny and he's a bit weird and no, it's just, hello, I'm Joel Grey. It's like, great, fantastic. God's sake, bring something. And on that note, thank you so much for listening to Muppetsational. If you've enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate and review, as it really helps spread the word about the podcast. You can follow us on social media. We are at Muppetsational on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. You can contact us at hiho@muppetspodcast.com, and you can find out more about us and the podcast at muppetspodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We shall see you next week on another episode of Muppetsational. I've been Lewis Chandler.
I've been Jade Turner.
And I've been Emma Chandler.
We'll see you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye.
Our theme music is Peppy Pepe by Kevin MacLeod, and our artwork is designed by Charlotte Rudge, who you can follow at Charlie_R_Rudge on Instagram.